Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company. Halfway through this morning extravaganza, it's Larry O'Connor, Mercedes Schlapp, and that's the Miami Sound Machine. You know it's got to be Mercedes. 7:35 brings us the Burgundy and Gold legend, Joe Theismann. 8:05 brings us Jenny Terre of the New York Post, and 8:35 brings us Peter Ducey of Fox News Channel. And every moment is going to bring us, apparently, Mercedes working her hips. Look at you go. You can't...
I barely can move my hips right now. I'm so freaking tired. I need like a week off. But then I always get inspired because I'm like, President Trump, he is going nonstop. How can I, young Mercedes, not be tired at this point?
By the way, everybody knows that Tom Fitton is a hero for freedom and liberty and transparency in our government and holding corrupt elected officials accountable. What they don't know about him is he is a hell of a salsa dancer as well. He joins us now. Tom, thanks for being here. Don't be bashful. It's true. We've all seen you on the dance floor.
Well, why would I dispute that? What could be worse?
Yeah. Run with it.
Exactly.
That's right.
Let's go with
That's
that.
Right.
Tom Fitton, my friend, it's always good to talk with you. There's a lot of talk right now about these pardons. A lot about Donald Trump's J6 pardons, but strangely, hardly anybody is talking about the pardons that Biden put out as he was leaving office, and those are, frankly, in my opinion, much more disconcerting. What do you think about these Biden pardons at the last minute to protect his family?
Well, obviously they're kind of corrupt and he's thumbing his nose at voters, the Constitution, and the rule of law. Whether they're valid or not is another matter.
But can we pause on that for a quick second? Because preemptive, this whole, they may have committed a crime, but if they did for the last 10 years, I mean, people are saying, well, Jerry Ford did that for Richard Nixon, so that makes it okay. Is that the only other precedent that we know of?
Yeah. And I don't think the Nixon pardon obviously was never challenged.
And it was rather extraordinary.
Yeah, it was pretty controversial. It's arguably the reason why President Carter was President Carter.
Yeah.
We forget that. What went on here is, in my view, something that should be rejected by President Trump and his team, which were, as I call it, pardons about nothing. And a pardon about nothing, where an offense isn't specified, is in the end a pardon about nothing, right? And I called this yesterday the empty set pardons. They're nullities. How is it they can even be managed or implemented when you don't know who the beneficiary is? When you look at the January 6 pardons as it relates to the committee and supposedly everyone who testified and the staff there, these people were destroying records. Who knows who these names are?
Right.
And when a president does this at the last minute, he's essentially turning it over to the next president. And so President Trump should tell the Justice Department, stop. Don't affect them. Don't deliver them. Don't process them. They're invalid. And in the end, the pardons are a defense, right? And so to test this, if I, again, were the Justice Department, or running the Justice Department, or the Defense Department in the case of General Milley, I would just proceed. See how far you get in terms of criminal investigations. Doesn't mean you target them specifically, but you begin the process of the investigations into the crimes that these people may or may not be implicated in. And if they are, it may be tested further in court. And I would focus on General Milley because, supposedly he's been pardoned for both federal offenses and offenses against the Code of Military Justice. There could be offenses short of criminal case charges even that can be pursued against him. This is, to me, something that, President Trump should just be aggressive on. And the pushback is, well, Trump might want to be able to do this 4 years from now. Well, we all know the Democrats are going to follow my lead if he does.
Yep. And
treat the pardons as I suggest Biden's pardons be treated. So That can't be the reason. And if it is, and if these pardons are valid, nothing stops President Trump from saying, I'm pardoning everyone who worked for me the last, frankly, 4 to 12 years, and for all federal offenses they may have committed.
Yeah.
What's the,
I gotta ask you something.
He could pardon everyone who worked for him in the government.
Yeah.
Right. Last night in an interview with Hannity, President Trump gave this warning of Biden gave everyone else a pardon but himself. Can we go to cut 6?
You got that? I'll get it.
On giving everybody pardons. And the funny thing, maybe the sad thing, is he didn't give himself a pardon. And if you look at it, it all had to do with him.
What does that tell you, Tom?
Yeah, your thoughts on that?
Well, it suggests he's highlighting the fact that President Biden still has potential criminal liability for his crime family and the activities that he's trying to protect other family members from being held accountable over. And he doesn't have the immunity the Supreme Court highlighted, it looks to me, for certain of these activities.
Tom Fitton is with us from Judicial Watch. Tom, you've been championing the cause of Ashley Babbitt and wanting to get to some level of justice for her family, the only person who was actually killed on January 6th, directly as a result of January 6th. And one of the Biden pardons going out the door was for Officer Byrd, the man whose hand pulled that trigger that killed Ashley Babbitt. Love for your thoughts on that and Ashley Babbitt's family, what their reaction is if you're in contact with them.
Well, they obviously want justice for Ashley. And I don't know, was Byrd pardoned? I don't know if that's true. Did he talk to the January 6th committee?
I thought Officer Byrd did get a pardon. Excuse me. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I was quite sure that he did.
Was he covered by that January 6th pardon? I don't know.
Well, all right. If he was not, I apologize.
It may be he was, but of course that highlights the absurdity and the nullity of the pardons. That we don't even know who's covered.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
true. There seems to be this whole sweeping thing. But if I'm wrong on that, I appreciate you correcting me on button. We do know that Anthony Fauci got a pardon, and
that's
the
true.
Information behind Anthony Fauci was also a major thrust of Judicial Watch's attempt to get transparency and attempt to get information about what went on there.
Well, two quick things on Ashley Babbitt. We represent her estate, her family, Aaron, her widower, in a $30 million wrongful death lawsuit currently being defended by the federal government. It's against the federal government. And so the Trump administration has to quickly figure out, it would seem to me, I would hope, whether it wants to defend in court the killing of Ashley. And so that's going to come to, we have a hearing next week.
Yeah. Well, good. We'll keep us updated on that. And again,
that would be terrible if the Trump administration it seemed to me terrible if the president's lawyers showed up at the Justice Department to defend her shooting death.
Yeah.
And whether there should be full accountability for it.
That would be remarkable, and that's certainly something that we will watch because it's a different Justice Department now, and it's a different White House, and they may take a very different approach. Tom Fitton, always good to talk with you. Thank you, sir. We got to leave it there.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.
It's Judicial Watch, and if you think, well, we've got a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, and we've got Trump in the White House, no, Judicial Watch is more important than ever. JudicialWatch.org, 7:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We continue here on O'Connor and Company. It's Larry and Mercedes. And there was a report yesterday that President Trump was going to release the JFK files, everything that is still being held under, lock and key and under, it's funny how many things leak in this country and from this government, but somehow over the last nearly 70 years now, there's information about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States, that is still under lock and key and still being withheld from the American people. And one has to wonder at this point, why? Who exactly is being protected?
You say that, but it was Mike Pompeo who basically, I think, made some comments, the former Secretary of State saying and the former CIA director saying, you really don't want to release, it would not be good to release some of the information from those files. But to your point, it has been 70 years. I think one of the things I remember when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke at CPAC at one of our investor summits, he really was pushing for the release of his uncle's files because he thinks that there's a huge state component to it, that there's a government involvement in the assassination of his uncle.
Right.
And so we need to know what has happened in this span of time
and
where
if there
questions still remain.
And if there isn't, then be transparent, release the information so that the American people will no longer be paranoid. It's at this point, if they release all this and say, see, the government wasn't involved, there's still going to be people who are going to say, well, we'll never believe you because it took you 70 years to tell us that and release all of this.
Right.
Here's Trump speaking to Hannity yesterday.
Will you investigate these assassination attempts? And you stated that you will release the files, all of the files, as it relates to the JFK assassination. And by the way, this is his desk.
Yeah, that's right.
This is where John Kennedy, little John Kennedy.
It's a movable door.
Yeah.
It's a little door there. That's where John was.
John, yeah. And RFK, and also Martin Luther King Jr., and that you will be transparent. This was going to happen in the first time.
So many people have asked me to do that. And I did it with Kennedy to an extent. But I was asked by some of our government officials not to. And, you have to respect them. I was actually asked by Mike Pompeo, as Secretary of State, not to. And I felt he knew something that maybe, when he asks you not to, you sort of say, why? And he felt that it was just not a good time to release them. And you might ask him why. Maybe he'll deny that even. But he did. He asked me. And some others also, though. They didn't want the Kennedy stuff released. And they're professionals, and I respect them. And they're working for me and the country. They're working for the country. And so I didn't release, but I'm going to release them immediately upon getting, we're going to see the information. We're looking at it right now.
They're looking at it right. So like I said, it was first floated yesterday in the afternoon, and I think it was our buddy Matt Foldy who said, we're hearing that they're going to release the JFK files. Then they pulled that report back later in the afternoon, said no, but they are under review. So that's the process that's going on right now. That was an exclusive interview with Sean Hannity last night, by the way.
I think it's going to be telling to see what actually happens if, in fact, they come back and they say, no, don't release them. But, gosh, it just raises more questions. Of
course. We need to have
maybe
trust
they
in
do
our
a partial
government.
release of them. I mean, that's kind of might be the interesting question. But there's always these conspiracy theories around what actually happened during that day of John F. Kennedy's death.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
An assassination. It's horrific.
All right, more in this
And Martin Luther King's assassination. That's the other piece of this.
And RFK, for that matter, Sr. More from this interview with Hannity and Trump. The question of the Biden pardons came up.
This guy went around giving everybody pardons. And the funny thing, maybe the sad thing, is he didn't give himself a pardon.
Yeah, everyone's reading into that, saying, he didn't give himself
What
a
does
pardon.
that mean?
He said that's the sad thing. It suggests that there's going to be some criminal investigation into Joe Biden himself.
Well, we know that the House members, I believed James Comer and Jim Jordan, have talked about it, not only investigating the J6 committee, but also moving forward with advising on criminal investigations to pursue criminal investigations against Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. So it does raise the question, how much time will the administration be spending on this, right? The Trump administration on Joe Biden.
Right.
Will there be this kind of retribution or going after the Bidens following,
Well,
Trump's
it's being characterized
victory?
as retribution, but I would rather characterize it as justice, as actual truth,
Yeah, justice.
transparency,
Yes, you are
and
right.
finding out if people took advantage and sold their offices to the highest bidder, especially a foreign country, that's hostile to America. We should know that. And that's why Speaker Mike Johnson made that announcement yesterday.
To us, it probably proves the point, the suspicion that, they call it the Biden crime family. If they weren't the crime family, why do they need pardons, right? Look, there's a lot of attention that's going to be paid to this, and I think that is appropriate, and we will be looking at it as well.
And because of the pardons, no one can plead the fifth. Let's find out who the big guy is to begin with. It's 7:20.
Who is the big guy?
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:37 on O'Connor and Company on this Thursday morning from your nation's capital, under new management this week, and it's making all the difference in the world. Coming up at 8:05, Jenny Terror will join us from the New York Post. 8:35, Peter Ducey of Fox News Channel. I'm joined all morning by Mercedes Schlapp, of course, of CPAC, currently Newsmax analyst, formerly of the Trump White House and the George W. Bush White House. But most importantly, she's a big fan of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and that's going to come in handy because we are joined by Redskins great, and I was admonished during the break by a big-time Golden Domer fan to say Heisman Trophy winning quarterback for your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. God, as a Michigan man, that makes it so, it hurts to say that. He is the one and only Joe.
Should not hurt.
Rhymes with Heisman. Theismann. Hey, Joe.
Good morning, Larry. Good morning, Mercedes. Yeah, it was a tough night for us down there in Atlanta against Ohio State. Congratulations to them. But, boy, our guys never quit.
Yep.
So proud of them.
Yeah, and it's got to be rough for Ohio State to win that championship knowing that they lost to Michigan so badly earlier in the year. All right,
oh, boy.
Somehow or other, Larry, I thought you'd find a silver lining
right
somewhere.
Yeah.
I love talking to former NFL quarterbacks, especially ones that have been to a Super Bowl, been in the play, experienced exactly what these guys in the Burgundy Gold are feeling. Because one thing that I've noticed about this team over the course of the last several weeks, and certainly in this playoff run, there's something about confidence. You can't coach it. You can't train it. You can't put it in the playbook. These guys have confidence like they can beat anybody, Joe. And I wonder what that's going to do when they walk into that hostile environment up in Philadelphia.
Well, Larry, it's interesting. You're right. They've become so resilient over the last month and a half just by winning games late. And Jayden's been sort of the tip of the spear as far as it goes, being out there, the guy having to make plays, having to make the throws, having to make the runs, having to pick up the first downs. Every time he's had to, he's done it.
Joe,
but the thing about
before you go, what is that like? I'm just interested in your own, what is it like in your brain? Because you were that guy. What is it like to know that it's like, yeah, okay, we got to do this. We're just going to do this.
It's great. It's great to be in a position where the people believe in you, the coaches believe in you, the players believe in you. Lip service doesn't fly in football. What everybody looks at is performance. Are you delivering in the moment? That critical moment that has to be, a first down that has to be made, that throw that has to be put in the right place. Are you delivering? That's the way, that's the way leadership grows. That's the way confidence grows. And for us, this is the third time they're going to play the Eagles.
Yeah.
There's very few things that are going to happen in this football game that I don't think anybody hasn't seen before. This really boils down to execution by players. Are you able to execute better on your side of the ball than they're able to execute? And for Washington, it really is, and you can't totally focus on Saquon Barkley, but he has to be, has to get your attention big time. He rushed for 148 the first time against us, 150 the second time. If that doesn't get your attention, then nothing will.
Are there any concerns that you foresee going into this game for the Commanders, besides having to deal with probably like the craziest fans in the NFL? Again, this is the third time they've had this dance. And there's a familiarity. And what the Mercedes, though, it's interesting, though. It's a great question because sometimes familiarity breeds complacency. Well, yes.
I've seen that before. I've studied that before. You have to treat this just like you've treated everyone. And Dan Quinn's done such a fantastic job of having his team ready to play. The leadership on that football team, having them ready to play. Understand the moment that you're stepping into. You want to say this is just another It's like another game. It's like playing in the Super Bowl. You want to treat it. People say, "Well, just treat it like just another football game." No, you can't.
No.
I mean, you really, really can't. It's bigger than This is the last step before the big dance.
Yeah.
Now you're headed to the prom and you're out the door. You're right there, ready to walk in, and this is what makes this run so interesting. This football team is so resilient. I think it all started with the Chicago Bear game.
Yep, I think you're right. That's
with that Hail Mary.
That certainly is what changed the attitude, and it's like we can do anything here. Joe, real fast, there's an interesting thing where the Eagles. This is kind of, I think, they're sort of everything's coming together for them. This is their chance to get to the Super Bowl, but they've got some older players, and they're in a different place. You got a rookie quarterback, rookie coach, and a lot of young players with the Commanders who are playing with house money. Does that change the dynamic here? Does it change coaching decisions for Coach Quinn, where it's like, yeah, you know what, we got next year, we got another year. I mean, we're building something here. Or do you go for broke?
Heck no, there is no next year.
Uh-huh.
You don't look to next year. What you've done is you've tempered these young guys and got them ready for this moment. Youthful enthusiasm sometimes can get in the way, but on the other side, I'll go back to 1982 real quick. We never experienced a Super Bowl. Every day it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, but it's awfully good tasting and it's an awful lot of fun. And we want to keep this thing going. And that's sort of the way I look at this football team.
He just threw a Forrest Gump at us there, Mercedes. That was good stuff.
Me, because I was like, hands up, like, please, let me ask one more question. Joe, what advice would you give the Commanders right now?
Play this like you've played it all year long. Believe in each other. Don't make the mistakes that kill you in football games. That's basically the bottom line. And just trust one another. Joe
Theismann, are you going to Philadelphia for the game?
Haven't made the decision yet. I'm looking at the temperatures.
I don't blame you. If you do, bring a security detail if possible. Those guys. They're rough. All right, Joe, enjoy it.
Tough.
Hopefully, we will talk next week and pick your brain about what it's like going to a Super Bowl.
I was thinking the same thing. I can't wait to talk to you next week.
There it is. All right, Joe Theismann, Redskins and Notre Dame, great. It is 7.
More important, Notre Dame.
Sorry, it's not more important.
Yeah,
it's 7:44. It is a new year. It's a new administration. It's a new you. Right? I know it's cheesy, but it's true. Why don't you start afresh? Why don't you inaugurate yourself into a brand new administration of health and weight loss? Okay, Copare has 2 programs for you. They got the Copare RX program. Julie raves about it all the time. Includes medications that helps you get past those cravings and really helps you focus on your health. I did the program without the RX. It's still the gold standard in weight loss in the D.C. area after 9 years now. They've had over 13,000 successful clients. It's an easy program to follow. It's based on science. And when you reach your goal, you have free grad sessions for life. Copare helps you keep that weight off forever. Call now. Make the new year a new you. Tell them Larry and Julie sent you and learn about the Jumpstart January program. 855-888-0180. 855-888-0180 or COPAREhealth.com. It's 7:45 now. WMAL traffic and weather.
Miss anything? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Get today's breaking news on the Vince Colonnese Show weekdays 3 to 6 right here on WMAL.
By the way, as we I want to tell you this incredible story about J.D. Vance, his first moment that he entered the Oval Office. And Mike Johnson was there to catch it on video. But before we get into that, real fast, did you see the mayor of Philadelphia there doing a pep rally for her Philadelphia Eagles?
Yes, and she spelled Eagles wrong.
Yeah, listen to this.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds!
Oh, that's a product of the Philadelphia public school system right there. Isn't she the same one who put out the preemptive video saying that Kamala Harris had named Josh Shapiro as her running mate and then ended up not happening?
Yeah. They were such a mess in Philadelphia that it really cost the Democrats the election in that area.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-L-E-S,
Elglass.
Let's go, Birds!
Elga says, let's go, Birds. Birds, she could
I don't know.
probably
Wouldn't
spell.
you write it? Wouldn't you write it on a little sheet of paper and just to make sure you got it right?
Right.
I
You know
guess,
exactly.
what I mean?
She's angry at the staffer. Why didn't you write this out? And the staffer's like, because it's Eagles. Who doesn't know how to
Eagles.
spell
Pretty
Eagles?
easy word to say. Yeah.
Like to buy a vowel?
Sure. Yeah, she should have bought a vowel. That's what she needed was Pat Sajak there. All right. And then meanwhile, J.D. Vance, I got to tell you, I try not to get too,
I think you have like a man crush on him.
I'm really, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a man crush, but I have high hopes for this guy. And I always tell people, and listen, I don't like to carry water for politicians because for the most part, politicians are just awful people. And they're going to, and they do whatever they have to do to survive, and they're going to disappoint you, and they're not going to deliver. And so I'm trying to temper my excitement about him. But every aspect of J.D. Vance really does get me energized. His life story. And, well, this was quite a moment. I saw it on X, the Everything app yesterday, Elon Musk's Wonder app. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, was accompanying J.D. Vance in the West Wing, and the president was taking them into the Oval Office. And J.D. turns to Mike Johnson and says, I've never been to the Oval Office before. And Johnson immediately pulls out his smartphone and captured the moment.
Margo? Hey, Margo. Good to see you. Good to see you, too. Wow.
This is J.D. Vance's first time to step into the Oval Office.
It's incredible. This is incredible.
The kid from rural Appalachia, whose
what a story.
Mom had to hand him off to his grandma to raise him because of her addiction problems, and now he's, I don't know, I'm trying to temper my...
He's a great American story. It's America's land of opportunities. I mean, and that's, I can tell you being, from Miami, middle-class family, Cuban family, to walk into the Oval Office the first time, you got to pinch yourself. And then you're so humbled because you know that you're there to serve the American people. It's truly an incredible
You remember
experience.
your first time walking into the Oval Office?
Oh, yes. I was like 27 years old working for President George W. Bush. And it was, it's a moment you just don't forget because you think to yourself, my goodness, how did I get here? It's literally through the grace of God, and you have this enormous amount of responsibility to do good for the country. So it's a really special moment, very special moment.
Have you ever heard my story about the first time I was in the Oval Office?
No.
You were there.
Oh, really? Oh, that's exciting.
You escorted me with President Trump. We were in the Roosevelt room recording an interview for WMAL.
Yes.
And then he looked at you and sort of, it looked like he was, looking for a signal about, do you think we should take him in?
Is he a good guy?
You're right. Is he a good guy? And then you gave him the thumbs up or a high sign, and he said, would you like to go into the Oval? Have you ever been in the Oval?
I remember that. I do remember that.
And then the three of us walked in together. And right before we walked in.
What was your reaction when you went in?
Breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking and emotional,
Yeah.
And I remember right before we walked in, he said, now don't forget to breathe because a lot of people come in here and they get overwhelmed. And
that's right.
I guess it's happened before. And
yeah. He's very proud. I mean, he's very proud to be able to serve this country.
Yeah.
And he loves America. I mean, he really does. Like, he wants to do what's good, and that's what's so really compelling about this president and J.D. Vance. First time in the Oval Office.
You guys have got to see this video of J.D. Vance and the look on his face, like a little boy.
It's priceless.
Yeah, we'll
priceless.
Make sure that we retweet Speaker Mike Johnson's video on our social media. It's 7:53.